In 1932, the Australian military went to war. They had soldiers, machine guns, and thousands of rounds of ammunition. Their enemy? Large, flightless birds. And against all odds, the birds won. After the First World War, Australia gave farmland to returning veterans, sending them to a remote region of Western Australia to grow wheat. It was hard, dry country, and life was already a struggle. Then, in late 1932, around 20,000 emus arrived. These tall, fast, flightless birds were migrating toward the coast, and they found the veterans' wheat fields directly in their path. They trampled crops, flattened fences, and ate everything in sight. Desperate, the farmers asked the government for help, and the government's response was remarkable. They sent the army. Under a major named Meredith, a small detachment of soldiers arrived, armed with Lewis machine guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition. On paper, it was no contest. Modern automatic weapons against wild birds. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, nearly everything. The emus, it turned out, were a nightmare to fight. They were fast, sprinting up to 30 miles an hour, and instead of clustering together, they scattered into small, unpredictable groups the moment shooting began, making them almost impossible to hit. In one attempt, the soldiers mounted a gun on a truck and gave chase, but the ride was so bumpy they couldn't aim, and the emus simply outran them. The guns jammed, ammunition ran low, and the birds kept coming. After about a week, the results were embarrassing. The soldiers had fired thousands of rounds and, by most accounts, killed only a few hundred emus out of the tens of thousands roaming the land. One officer reportedly remarked that if his men had faced enemy soldiers with the emus' toughness, they'd have taken on any army in the world. The operation was quietly called off. The press had a field day, mocking the whole affair as a war the military had lost to birds. Incredibly, the farmers pushed for a second attempt, and the military returned a few weeks later. This time, they claimed better results, picking off more birds over the following weeks. But it was never the decisive victory anyone had imagined. The emus were simply too numerous, too fast, and too scattered. Eventually, the government abandoned the idea of military intervention altogether and switched to a far less glamorous solution, a bounty system, paying farmers to cull the birds themselves. That, unlike the army, actually worked. Beneath the comedy, there's a real lesson here. The Great Emu War is a perfect example of the limits of brute force against nature, and of how badly plans can go when we underestimate the natural world. Australia has a long, painful history of wildlife, and introduced species wreaking havoc on farming. And the emu debacle became a symbol of just how stubborn those problems could be. Sometimes, the mightiest tools are useless against the simplest opponents. To this day, the Great Emu War is remembered as one of history's most ridiculous military campaigns. The time, an army marched out with machine guns and was defeated by birds that couldn't even fly. History doesn't get much stranger than that.